Welcome back to Race for the White House. I'm David Gregory, just our second week on the air. Glad to have you here. We've got the panel that comes to play, and this is the part of the show when we take our three big questions of the campaign straight to them. So with us, Rachel Maddow, host of her own show on Air America, Richard Wolffe, Newsweek senior White House correspondent, Eugene Robinson, Washington Post columnist. They are all MSNBC political analysts, and Morning Joe is here too, the host of Morning Joe, that is Joe Scarborough. First up, Ron Fournier of the Associated Press hears echoes of Al Gore after Clinton came under fire yesterday for her Bosnia comments. To the quote board, polls show that voters wonder about Clinton's honesty and authenticity. The Bosnia story plays to that character issue, as former Vice President Al Gore could tell her once the media and voters start doubting a candidate's integrity, every episode that fits that narrative gets blown out of proportion. Gore never said he invented the internet, but such nuance was lost on people who voted against him back in 2000. So our first question tonight, does Senator Clinton have an authenticity problem? Joe Scarborough.
This doesn't seem to be the issue yet, but, Ron nailed the point. The problem with Al Gore was he had a history of making exaggerated comments, suggesting he was more important than he really was. So in 2000, I think the press was almost hypersensitive, oversensitive to any possible exaggerations. That hasn't really been the narrative against Hillary Clinton up until the last month or so regarding peace in Ireland and now this story about Bosnia. So no,
but Bosnia,
not a key issue. If you have 3 or 4 more issues like this, perhaps it hurts.
But, what's interesting to me, Rachel Maddow, on the Bosnia question, yes, you can believe it was a misstatement, but 2 points come rearing back. She said it more than once. On several occasions she said this. I had a viewer call today on my voicemail that said, how could you possibly get something like that wrong when you're traveling with your child? You would never forget if with your child you came under fire.
But the story of political resonance, David, is whether or not these items, these individual news flashes, fit into a story that the media wants to tell. That's what political resonance is. And so if Hillary Clinton seeming uncredible because of that issue does not fit into a larger narrative that the media wants to put her in, then it's not going to get repeated. It's not going to be linked to, it's not going to be endlessly repeated and linked to lots of other stories. Case in point on the other side, John McCain with the Al-Qaeda-Iran conflation. He made that comment at least 4 different times, but because the media doesn't want to tell a story that John McCain isn't getting something right on foreign policy and terrorism, no matter how many times he restated it, it keeps getting dismissed as a gaffe. It keeps getting written out of the story because it doesn't resonate the way they want it to.
Let's move on. There's clearly a toughness gene that runs in the Clinton family bloodline. We're going to take a listen to Chelsea Clinton batting away a question about Monica Lewinsky. Watch.
Wow, you're the first person actually that's ever asked me that question. In the maybe 70 college campuses that I've now been to. And I do not think that's any of your business.
The question was about whether it hurt her authenticity, hurt her credibility. The Lewinsky scandal hurt Hillary Clinton's credibility. Most people would probably defend Chelsea Clinton's answer, but this moment inspired question number 2. Has the Lewinsky episode colored the 2008 race in some way? Gene, is it in the background there without talking about it?
It's always in the background. I mean, I don't think it's a huge issue right now. It's not in the middle of the campaign. It sounds to me from that clip, the interesting thing I draw from it is that Chelsea obviously has a bit of Bill in her in the way she handled that question. To go after the question, said it's the first time anybody has, she didn't say this, but dared to ask me that question, and I'm not going to answer it. So I think most people would respect that, even though she is an adult and she is a campaign surrogate at this point, and you expect to be able to ask those people whatever you want to ask them. But she's a daughter who went through a difficult time, and I think people are going to respect that.
Richard, you know that opinions about Hillary Clinton, just as Bill Clinton, are in fact impacted by the Lewinsky episode, which most people know everything they want to know about.
Sure they are. And look, the media jumped on her White House records, Hillary's White House records. One of the first things they looked for was what was she doing on the day of one of the trysts with Lewinsky. So this story is always going to be there. It's part of, for obviously worse, not better, the Clinton brand, and that does impact on the questions of honesty and authenticity. Now, it's not a big point in this campaign, but it's in the background, and it always will be with the Clintons.
Right, and for the record, really quickly, as a Republican that was there during the scandal, Bill Clinton's ratings were like 50% when it started and 63% when he left office. So the Clintons hope that Lewinsky's in the background. It works.
This just in, we always want to be about fresh information here on Race for the White House, and we've got some fresh new NBC News, Wall Street Journal polls to share with you. First, the general standing among the Democrats. Our latest poll shows Hillary Clinton tied with Barack Obama nationally. Look at the numbers, 45%. This is a 2-point loss for Clinton in the past 2 weeks, along with a 2-point gain for Barack Obama. This next one breaks down their positive ratings. Positive reaction to Clinton now stands at 37%, an 8-point drop over the past 2 weeks. Let's compare that to Barack Obama. Currently got a positive rating of 49%, down just 2 points in the past week. You go to the negative ratings. Hillary Clinton's negative now 48%, a 5-point gain in the past 2 weeks. Barack Obama's negative rating 32%. That's up 4 points in the past 2 weeks. So if you look at all of it, you look at the issue of Reverend Wright and all of this, Joe, what do you make?
The most stunning statistic is she's only got a 37% approval rating, but 45% of Democrats are voting for her. What does that say about Barack Obama? That would scare the hell out of me if I were running his campaign. Again, a 37% approval rating for Hillary Clinton, and yet she's getting 45% of Democratic voters nationwide. What does that say about the state of the Democratic Party right now and their frontrunner, Barack Obama?
Rachel, you look at the Reverend Wright episode over the last couple of weeks, has not had a huge impact that we can discern from this poll on negatives for Barack Obama.
Yeah, that's right. The big story here for me is just the resilience of Barack Obama. He got hit really hard from a lot of different sides over the past few weeks, and he seems to be bouncing right back from that. My principle in looking at negative campaigning on the Democratic side or the Republican side is that even though lots of pundits like to say that it's going to backfire on the person doing the negative campaigning, it's going to look the person who's throwing those punches look bad, doesn't ever really manifest that way in the polls. So I think the real story here is not that people are turning against Hillary, it's that Obama seems to be bouncing right back after all those attacks.
The question, Richard, is... Go ahead, Gene. Hold on. My question here is, if you look at the positive, negative ratings, do you point to Obama's speech? Did he get out of the thicket here with the speech and help keep his negative numbers in check?
Yeah, I think you can conclude a few things, or posit a few things. Number one, the speech seems to have done well. It seems to have really helped him weather this storm. One possibility is that when things get nasty and dirty, Obama has more Teflon than Hillary Clinton does, and things stick to her. And so, the controversy was really about him, but she ended up taking the hit. The other possibility is that some of this increase in her negatives is coming from people who supported Obama, but who basically thought Hillary Clinton is okay, she'd be a fine nominee, and maybe they don't think that anymore.
Final thought here from Richard. What do you make of these numbers?
Well, Democrats can't make a decision. That's number one. Number two, look, if this is the worst period that Obama has been through, and it has been hell for them on their Wright story, then look, what people want to hear is what the candidates have to say, and they tune into it. They tune into his speech. He came out pretty well out of it, considering all that happened. Hillary Clinton on Bosnia, again, what do the candidates say? That's what voters are reacting to, not what the people around them, not what the noise chamber says.